Zoom call number 4, huh, Rennie? But I'm going to go ahead and get started because we do have a pretty full agenda tonight. I'm going to start. Everybody received the email with my suggested bylaw changes. Is there any discussion on that we need to have, or any clarification on that anybody would like to discuss? Basically, what happened is our most recent what's it called, vote was rather contentious, which has never happened in our club before. So I just wanted to clarify all the bylaw votes so that moving forward it would be really clearly understood, because some of the verbiage that was not clear was about like how you count abstentions, what you consider a quorum, and then what has to win, be winning. So basically what the bylaws would be clarifying is that a quorum is 50% of the voting membership. Abstentions count towards the quorum, but not towards the vote. And then also to relax, we had originally that you can only vote if you live in the Fremont, Union City, or Newark area. I don't think we've ever upheld that bylaw, so we might as well just strike it. Our club has not like been infiltrated with people that aren't from here. If anything, we've just been growing more membership into like Union City and stuff. So I don't really think it's concerning to eliminate that, but I am all ears to anyone else's questions or suggestions. No, nothing. All right, cool. Well, I like it. I like that. I like that a lot. So in the meantime, I will, the vote to amend the bylaws will be on the vote with this endorsement. So we are not going to take a vote on that this very second. So next, Rennie would like to make some announcements. Rennie, go ahead. Oops, you're on mute. There you go.
Yes. Thank you, Kelsey. Hi, everybody. So, you know, I was trying to get involved more in the Democratic campaigns for Joe Biden and some of the state campaigns for senators. And I did some looking around, and I found a couple of sites that allowed me to find out about phone banking and text banking. And if I can, I'm going to share with you some of those ideas. And if you guys realize this is an important time to want to get involved, you hadn't had a chance or know how to do it, I've already done the legwork for you. And I'm just going to give you an overview of the two types of campaigns that are going on that I'm working on. And I'll set some links in the chat window at the end that allows you to go sign up. First off, in the paper I found the Santa Clara County Democratic Party. They have a very robust website with all kinds of support links, particularly how to do phone banking. So basically, about 3 days a week, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, they host a Zoom call that volunteers can call into, and they'll get trained on how to do phone banking using their dialer called Through Talk. And in the first 10 or 20 minutes of the call, they'll go over the Through Talk dialer. They'll explain to people how to use it. And at the end, they'll give you some one-on-one training in a breakout room from Zoom if you're interested. And basically, they're calling the different states around the country that are more, I guess, what is the word? Battleground states. So if you can call, you're interested in calling the battleground states, some on the evenings after work or around Sunday afternoon, please feel free to join us. We host these, I do the text support for these meetings, so I'm always there. If you're interested in working with me, you can. Otherwise, you can just go to their website, sign up, and they'll send you an email and you'll send you a link how to join the Zoom call. And once you're there, they'll set you up with how to use your phone, and you'll dial in through your laptop. And then your laptop will let you do all the dialing, and they won't even see your phone number. Secondly, if you're not into phone banking, and a lot of people aren't, there are text banking opportunities. I hooked up with a group called Dems of Rossmore. They're out of Walnut Creek. They are the largest Democratic club in California. They have like over 1,000 members. So these people are basically providing tech support and guidance if people want to learn how to do text banking. And basically, text banking will allow you to work through campaign spearheaded .org creates via your cell phone. In fact, you don't use your phone at all. Basically, they'll call for you. You'll send upwards anywhere from 500 or 1,000 texts in like 10 minutes. And if there's any replies that come in and they have questions, you will respond. You don't have to type any of the text at all. It's all cut and paste, basically. It takes you about an hour to get trained, and the Dems of Rossmore have these people who have side to side who will do training. And once you're trained up, you'll get a link to work on send out these moved on texts. Let me send the 2 links right now, and I'll put them in the chat window. 1 second. And I'm also available to take any questions right now if anybody has any.
Questions? Yes, I'm just going to echo what Rennie said. We have a fight on our hands. I believe there are 6 Senate races that they're targeting. So even if you're not into Biden, which I know a lot of us are like, there are a lot of really critical Senate seats. And if we get the Senate, then we can stop like so much of the bad stuff from happening. So yeah, I would expect each and every one of you, my politicos, to be getting involved in someone's race. It takes all of us together. Oh, go ahead, Mandy.
So I've been doing postcarding, which I don't think Rennie mentioned. So for some people, that's easier. And I mean, I was also making some calls for TJ Cox yesterday, but postcarding is flipthewest.com or .org, and they'll lead you through it, and then you buy some postcards and you get to write, and it's quite easy, and apparently it's quite effective for the people who get those postcards. They do vote a lot more, and they focus on Senate seats.
Yeah, we on Mondays they have what they call Mondays for Maine. They'll be calling into on Monday at 10 a.m. till 12. They'll do phone banking to support the challenge of Susan Collins, Sarah Gideon.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in doing that, join us on Mondays. Again, through the same link I just posted here. You'll look at the events calendar and find out about that. So yeah, occasionally they will have state Senate seats in the different states as well, in the ones that we need to flip.
Santa Clara County also did postcards through the Dems that we did, but they had to be mailed out by this week. So I don't know if they're still doing postcards. Okay. I know there's Lin-Manuel Miranda is doing that thing tomorrow evening where you can write letters. Forward. Yeah, vote forward to write letters. So there's all kinds of stuff out there if people just look.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We did some postcards for Vinny, and now I am the campaign manager that has to address them all and get them in the mail. So that's been eating away at my life, but it's been a good time. So
I could help with that, if you needed help with addressing. I don't mind helping to address.
I have people helping. It's more that I'm just kind of like being really specific, and I'm trying to really, you know, like look at the whole voter household, you know, like, okay, maybe if you're a super cool Democrat, but you're married to an old crotchety Republican, I'm not going to like send this thing. I'm going to send. So I'm being very thorough. Unfortunately, my detail orientation, like hyperactivity gets to me. But with that being said, we'll move along because Sarah wanted to make an announcement as well. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Just wanted to make a quick pitch. Some folks from the League of Women Voters and other folks are more than welcome to join this effort, are starting to raise some awareness around the redistricting effort. You know, the census collection, you all know how critical that is. And then once that's done, of course, comes the redistricting. And in Alameda County in 2011, they had half the number of public meetings that they had in 2001. And so we'd really like that to not be the case again. We'd really like to see things be a little more balanced. No disrespect to Oakland, but the idea that they have 3 votes on a 5-member board seems a little out of balance. You know, the push is not for any lines to be drawn in any specific way. It's really about just, can we have a fair and inclusive process regarding redistricting, and can we engage all those stakeholders that got engaged for the census and really build on that network. So I'm putting a petition in the chat that we're asking people to sign on to, and feel free to send your own letter if you prefer a different kind of wording. Feel free to hit me up if you want more information. Thanks so much.
To Sarah's point, I'm just going to show you guys the actual map. If you've never looked at the map of the Alameda County Board of Supervisors before, let me just perhaps share my screen. There we go. Okay. So we have a very gerrymandered county, and I actually think this is the old one, but up here, especially if you look at District 5 in the top left, there's like this whole little square right here that they like Republican kerplunked out and like have dangling in what really should be a different district. So yeah, and it is drawn very weird, and this is something Vinny and I have been talking about, obviously, as it may pertain to us in the future. And I agree with Sarah 100% that we definitely want to have a lot of public meetings. I remember when Fremont went to the district, we you know, we had a lot, and the community really did, you know, want to be involved, and I think that that's going to be something really big this time too. So yes, everybody make sure you sign on to that for Sarah. Does anyone else have any announcements or anything before we get into the propositions? Okay. So I'm just going to tell you guys that on the free Survey Monkey that I use for our ballots, as I'm sure you noticed from our last election, our last endorsement vote a couple weeks ago, that I can only do 10 questions. There are 11 propositions on the ballot, and I'm too about myself to do 2 separate ballots for 1 extra proposition. So I left proposition 14 off, but that's the one we'll start with. I'm just going to assume that we'll probably endorse it, but if anybody is opposed, let me know. What it does is it issues a $5.5 billion bond for the Stem Cell Research Institute. This institute was started by a private philanthropist, you know, like doctor, scientist, and basically they've been doing the research for many, many years, and they're out of money. So they're trying to get this proposition passed to get more money into the program. I was looking today to see who was opposed to it or endorsed it. I didn't really find anything yet. But a little background from Cal Matters. This is in 2004, voters passed Proposition 71 to create the California Institute for Regenerative Medicine. The institute exists to channel state money towards stem cell research. And in 2004, we also borrowed $3 billion to do that. So the first $3 billion that we invested in this institute's gone. They want another $5.5 billion. Does anybody have any other information, any thoughts on this? This is a weird one that like no one's really paying attention to.
Yeah, so if you look at the Pete's rates things that I sent, he has some background on that.
Okay, cool.
One thing I would say on that is when that was originally passed, that was when stem cell research was banned generally, and federal funding was banned. So I think it was Schwarzenegger actually that set that up so that we would have funding here to try and attract that kind of research to the Bay Area. I'm not sure if it's as necessary now. I think it's a good thing overall. I'm not sure if it's as necessary now as it was then. But you can read the Pete's Rate stuff for more background.
Yes, we do have some additional materials that members shared in the chat, so feel free to open those. I'm reviewing this, and yeah, my general thought is, obviously, I think stem cell research is really important. I actually did a research paper about it in high school for fake Senate, and we should definitely continue that. But I think there's two things that I would be hesitant about, which is that we're going to have a really tight budget coming out of COVID, and $5.5 billion sounds like a lot of money. If it was like maybe $2 billion, I'd be like, oh, okay, you know, that's feels more continuative. But I feel like it probably won't, people are going to be really anxious about, you know, passing bonds and stuff that's going to put us in this kind of debt with an uncertain economy. So that's a tough one. I sound like a Republican. I'm like, oh, we have to be fiscally responsible. We can't study science with our money. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, so responding to Brian, I agree with the Pete's rates thing. And so it's sort of what the Green Party says, which is, look, I'm a scientist, so I generally support science. And it's true that stem cell research was blocked by the feds for a while, and money has been flowing. The main thing is this one, it sort of gives money and it's unaccountable. So these private corporations can get the money, do a lot of stuff, and they just don't have to, you know, pay back to the public. And that's not a good way to do it. If you're going to be, you know, bonds are not super anyway, versus, you know, if you want to do something, if you can get the support, just raise a tax. Bonds, you're paying about twice as much over time. So that's a separate thing. But just on this, that's my main issue, is that it seems to benefit the private corporations without benefiting the public back as much.
Okay. Today was the very first time I'd even seen this proposition, so I appreciate the feedback a lot from the others. Proposition 15, we all know this one. This is schools and communities first. Does anyone oppose it? Maybe this is the one that I should leave off the ballot, since I know we're gonna probably all vote to support it. Does anyone need any background information on this? We're all pretty up to speed. If you need any background information, just feel free to raise your hand or pop out. Okay, very good. I don't see any hands up. Gonna do one more round. Okay.
Maria had a question, didn't she?
Oh, go ahead. Maria, did you have your hand up?
Yes, Kelsey. Just give me a synopsis of Proposition 15.
Absolutely. So schools and community first is the split roll for Prop 13. So what they're gonna do is residents who are protected by Prop 13, which is the infamous 1970s, you know, tax law that basically froze property tax for residents, they're going to take commercial property out of that. So for example, the Chevron refinery up in the Northeast Bay in Richmond, that gets Prop 13 protections for their property tax. Disneyland is under Prop 13. It is like the hugest amusement park in the state, and they pay almost nothing in taxes, property taxes. So there's actually, they say that this is gonna be bringing in a lot of money, and specifically for the Bay Area, we're gonna be getting, you know, hold on, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 9, like 12 digits back in money, I think. Wait, 9, 10, 11, yeah. So we're going to be getting a lot of money from this, specifically in the 9 Bay Area counties. But basically that's what it is, split roll. And so that commercial property has to pay their fair share in property taxes, and they're not protected by Prop 13. And it's all going, from my understanding, directly, the reason they're calling it schools and communities first is because it's all going directly into the education system, is my understanding.
And local governments, I think.
Okay. I know I thought I let Vanessa on the call, and I know she had a lot of information about it, but if anyone else has information they want to share. Go ahead, Diane.
Well, the only thing I was going to say is I don't think it all goes to school because I know transportation is getting some. So it's not all going to schools, but I think the majority of it is. And the only thing that I want to say about it, I totally support it, but I wish their definition of a small business was a little bit bigger than 3 billion, because I actually 3 million, because I actually think that, especially in the Bay Area, if you're a small business that actually owns the building you're in, chances are you're going to end up fitting in that category, because $3 million in the Bay Area is not really a lot of money for real estate. So that's the only concern I have, is that it could hurt some people that we actually consider small business versus the major corporations.
Yeah. I agree. And another thing that I've been mentioning to people is that all this money is going to get distributed to cities through their county supervisors. So if you want our cities, especially Fremont and Livermore and Dublin, who have traditionally been robbed by the Board of Supervisors, to get their fair share, then it's very important that we get Vinnie Bacon elected. But I am, real quickly, I'm going to share the graph of how they expect the areas to get money so everyone can see. This is the regional breakdown of what we are expected to reclaim in property taxes from Prop 15. So yeah, like I said, the Bay Area is getting expected to get close to 5 billion, which is going to be the most in the state. So that's that. Is there any other question or conversation that we want to have about this prop before we move on? Okay. Proposition 16. This is the one that, way back when, in the 80s or 90s or something, when we thought solving racism by being colorblind was the way to go, the state of California passed, I think it was 209, and it's basically put a ban on affirmative action. So you had to be colorblind when hiring or doing college acceptance and all that kinds of stuff. And what they've realized is that it did not help the situation at all, because of course racism is not going away if you ignore it. So now this prop would basically reverse that and make it a affirmative action available again. So I know I'm supporting it. A lot of people at first were not. I know a lot of, especially in California, I'm pretty sure we're a majority minority state by now. So some people were really hesitant about this, feeling like maybe there isn't a need. But I started talking to older voters, and especially older voters who are not white, and they feel like they see a difference because we don't have affirmative action anymore, as versus when we did before. And I thought that was really like saying something big. So I'm like, I think that we need to support it. And I think that we've evolved past thinking that we can solve racism by being colorblind. We have to solve racism by putting all the colors of the rainbow on the flag. Okay, done. Any other conversation about this? Anyone against it? Anybody have other questions about what it would do?
I'm totally supportive. There is some data, I think, also that talks about the amount of diversity has significantly declined. The number, employment rates are worse for folks of color, et cetera. So it just, all of the things you just said, it needs to pass. Done.
Yes. And so some of these are phrased really oddly, where you really want to vote no. Not yes. So this is actually a yes one. If you want to make sure that we have affirmative action back in California, it's a yes vote. So if there's no further discussion, we can keep whipping right through these and get everyone off a call early, which would be amazing. Okay, Prop 17, I don't think that this one is so that parolees in California can vote. I think you all know I'm like very pro suffrage. I don't think anybody should lose their right to vote. People always try to tell me like, Kelsey, what about if somebody murdered your mother? Would you really want them to vote? And I'm like, yes, dude, they're going to be in prison, but they still get to vote. And I think it's really, it's bad for our criminal reform justice goals that the people who have been inside the system and know where reform is needed the most for prisoners and inmates don't get to vote. I mean, they are part of one of our largest institutions once they become a prisoner or once they go through the system, and they have the firsthand knowledge that many politicians need to reform the system. So when you take away their right to vote, you're taking away their right to be an activist for, you know, the institution that charged that you know, changed their life, or for the worse or for better or for whatever. So I think everyone should vote. Felons, people in jail, people who've gotten out of jail, people who've murdered people, whatever. You're an American, you get to vote. Does anybody else have questions about that or about this Prop 17? And this again is an affirmative one. So if we want to restore parolees' rights to vote, it's affirmative, yes. No other questions? Cool. I normally like when other people talk too, to help break it up, so otherwise I start to sound like a podcast. Prop 18. This is also about suffrage. This would allow 17-year-olds to vote in the primary if they are going to be 18 in the general. So this doesn't really apply to me in any regard, but I still support it. I think another thing to consider, I haven't seen any information about this as far that and I was kind of looking for it. I should look in these other sources. So if someone has seen it, let me know. How many people do they anticipate that this will affect? Like by letting 17-year-olds vote in a primary, like maybe 300,000, 500,000?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Around that order.
That's
And
fair.
probably most of them won't, but I've been involved in pre-registration at Logan and at some Fremont high schools, and pre-reg is awesome. You know, 16 and 17-year-olds, for those who don't know, can pre-reg in California, which means you sort of get into the system, and then as soon as you're 18, you're already registered. And so it gets you, gets you involved, and you start learning about those things. So my question actually on this is there a law that prohibits, say we want 17-year-olds to vote in the general? This is not on this, but later, because this is going to start to become an issue in the future. Yeah.
I believe in the Constitution, it says that you have to be 18 years old.
Really? Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
So I'm assuming maybe in our state and local elections, because like I know our localities, a lot of them are now letting like legal residents who are not citizens vote for things like school board and city council.
Mhm.
And then perhaps at the state level, under our own state constitution, we could allow that. But for like president or any federal race, we would have to have a constitutional amendment.
Okay.
I have a whole list of constitutional amendments that we need. So like the second that we can get this done, fam.
Cool.
Any other questions on Prop 18 and letting the youth vote in the primary? Okay.
Is that a yes vote?
So yes, that is a yes vote. A yes vote allows 17-year-olds who will be 18 at the time of the next general to vote in primaries and special elections.
All right, thank you.
So Prop 19 is another tax one that I'm very confused by. So anyone else can feel free to jump in. I'll read the description that's on Cal Matters. They're normally pretty good. So it's being sponsored by the California Realtors. They're not usually the best friend of progressives. And it's a constitutional amendment. And what it would do is allow homeowners who are over 55, disabled, or victims of a natural disaster to take a portion of their property tax base with them when they sell their home and buy a new one. It would also limit the ability of new homeowners who inherit properties to keep their parents' or grandparents' low property tax payments. Most of the additional money would go into a state fire response fund. So this is half of the one from 2018, where we were allowing older disabled homeowners to keep a portion of their Prop 13 tax break. And so now they're doing it again, and they're trying to, what Cal Matters call, sweeten the pot by having people who inherit their property, they only get to keep the low property taxes if they use it as their primary residence, and only on the first $1 million between the home's original purchase price and its market value. That is really complicated. How do my over 55 homeowners feel about this proposition? This is about y'all, so. Anyone? Go ahead, Diane.
Well, I mean, it sounds good, and I agree with it. I think older people should be able to take the value of their home and move someplace else, especially if they want to downsize. And in this area, to downsize means you're paying more money than you do for your big house. With that said, it's sponsored by the Realtors Association, so I feel like there's something in there I'm missing, and I just haven't figured out what it is yet, because there's no way they're gonna want to really do this. There's got to be some kind of loophole that makes it a bad thing for us and makes them money. That's just my view.
Well, so Brian put in the chat here, it also gives reassessment immunity to middle-aged people who upsize. So it achieves revenue neutrality by reducing tax bills for people who buy and increasing them for people who inherit, and who makes money when real estate is sold, but not when it's inherited, realtors. So I think it's a little bit crazy with the inheritance thing. I would support something like this definitely for people who lose their homes in natural disaster, or, you know, who have an unexpected life event like their spouse dies or something like that, and they're unable to manage that. But I don't want to give the real estate agency, the real estate association, anything.
Kelsey.
Yeah.
This is confusing. I mean, yeah. I would really kind of research it more, because, you know, people with, like you said, homeowners with disability issues, and then the ones that inherit the property, I kind of wonder how that's all going to work. It sounds a little kind of confusing and disturbing at the same time. I'm not sure how to make it all for tax reasons, and making sure that, you know, the homeowner is able to get the Proposition 13 benefit, and the ones that inherit property, will they get the same property, you know, Proposition 13? It doesn't sound like they will. So that's where I'm kind of confused.
Yeah, no, they're definitely trying to make it more appealing by punishing people who inherit property, which I'm against, because inheriting property has been the #1 way to pass down generational wealth in America, like since we got here in the 1600s. You know, passing down property has been like a major family wealth generator, and I wouldn't want to like take that away from generations of Americans. Sarah, you have your hand up?
Yeah, so I don't disagree with where you're going. What I'm wondering about is and I'm not particularly defending this, it's just an interesting thought about closing the loophole for people who are not living in that home. So, you know, we have these properties with the low property value and the really high skyrocketing rents, and that inequity isn't okay with me. So
Yeah, and all those vacant houses that get Prop 13 that they're putting on
Mhm.
Airbnb and stuff when we
Yeah.
have a housing crisis.
That.
Yeah.
That.
And that's the thing, is that now we get in a position where it's like, okay, we want to support people who are seniors, who are lost their home in natural disaster, things like that. And we want to support closing loopholes on auxiliary properties, but we don't want to punish this other group of people to get it done. And so, yeah, that's everybody read up on it. That's going to probably be our hardest one this year. Barbara nailed it too. Barbara did nail it, that it is mostly white people who pass down homes, and people who are not white, normally their homes are not even valued the same way because our country is still like pretty deeply segregated.
Oh, Fred has a question.
Oh, go ahead, Fred. Oh, wait, let me unmute you. Sorry. Go ahead.
As a old white homeowner with kids, some way I think it's a disadvantage for me to. I mean, it's an advantage for my kids. That'd be fantastic. They get the home for low taxes, but it's somewhat unfair. It builds. I forgot the word. What you call the rich versus it continues the wealthy, that, you know, so new people coming along have a harder time getting into a home where if it's handed down, it's a gift, rather than they should pay as much tax as a new home if they got a new home, and they get this one for free. So in a way, it's unfair. You know, okay, I should sell the home and then have a legacy. I'll give my kids enough money to buy their own home, but then they should have to pay the current tax as a new homeowner, rather than build family wealth of the Morrison family. Well, that's kind of feels unfair, actually. I'm not that wealthy, but I mean, you know, it builds dynasty rather than fairness for everybody. So yeah, I don't like it, actually. I'm not going to vote for it. So
you brought up a lot of really incredibly good and valid points, Fred. It is, I mean, it's
now the other part, like you said about if it burns down or something, or that, well, no, that's
yeah.
Or if my wife and I are going to stay in it, even though it's too big for us, then okay, we should keep it low. But when we go and when we sell it, and when we pass it on to our kids, they should pay the current rate and support the schools and whatever is needed with the taxes.
All right.
We don't need to build dynasty. So that's my 2 cents.
All right.
Realtors, it encourages the sale with low taxes, so realtors will make more money on it. Well, that's why they're for
it. Rennie, Jackie, you seen before
we were just applauding. We were just applauding.
Yeah, I kind of agree with what he said. Yeah. There's already some counties, like Alameda County has an understanding with, there's like
20 counties
20 counties in California that you can already move to and retain your current tax. So if we wanted to move anywhere within Alameda County, if you're over, I don't know if it's, I think it's over 62, you can retain your current tax on your home.
You can do it you can sell your house once.
And then there's other counties, like we could go to LA County, or we could go San
Francisco.
You just have to pick your counties if you want to take advantage. But I think knowing that that's pushed by the real estate people, that it's very suspicious.
Yeah. I think that's normally why I always look at who endorses stuff, because yeah, they do make these complicated on purpose. So which one was that? Was that 19, you guys?
It was 19.
19.
Okay.
And so would that be like, is that straightforward, a yes or a no?
That one would be, so if you don't support it, it's a no.
Okay.
And if, yeah, so that one's a straightforward yes, no, from the very best I can tell on the 3 websites I have up in front of me. So then Proposition 20, this one is 20. Makes changes to policies related to criminal sentencing charges, prison release, and DNA collection. So on Cal Matters, they tell you this is a constitutional amendment. It would allow prosecutors to charge repeat or organized petty theft as a felony, require probation officers to seek tougher penalties for those who violate the term of their parole 3 times, and exclude those who have been convicted of domestic violence and certain nonviolent crimes from early parole consideration. This was put together by law enforcement agencies. I'm pretty sure we're all like very firmly defund, not refund, but my understanding is that this is about being more punitive, and I don't think anybody here supports that. Especially not when it comes to keeping people in jail longer on nonviolent crimes before letting them have a parole consideration. Like, get out of here. It's not what we do. So voting yes on it would be bad. We want no if we support the law as it is now. It's called, on Cal Matters, they called it the Jerry Brown leniency rollback. That was the first time I've ever heard him be called lenient. But does anyone else have any more information on this or have any questions about it?
So I do agree. I don't support all these provisions of it, so I'm going to vote no. But there is this provision about DNA testing. I am pretty pro DNA testing. It can solve cold cases. And, you know, there's this rape case that this guy is very falsely, actually it's a capital case that's in North Carolina or something. And they want to kill this guy in December. And the prosecution won't let it be DNA tested because they know that he probably didn't do it. He's sort of mentally impaired and he's a black guy. So I'm pretty pro DNA testing. So, but I don't support the rest of this bill, so that we can do that through some other bill.
Yeah.
I just want to make that.
I don't think you need to collect DNA from somebody for shoplifting.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair.
Yeah, we should definitely be able to get good DNA laws passed through our state legislature. I mean, the fact that we have a Democratic supermajority and we can't just get some of this stuff simply done through our legislature as it exists is very frustrating for me. I mean, DNA testing to save this innocent guy's life, or, you know, confirm one way or that's so just pass it in the legislature. Okay, so any further discussion? This is Prop 20. Everyone is,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Fred.
Just I want to support the no.
The no.
Yeah, because we don't need other reasons to keep people in jail any more than they need to be.
No, and we don't need to be giving money to keep people in longer, denying them parole. We're going to be having budget problems. I'd rather give my money to stem cell research.
Right.
So the AIDS Healthcare Foundation put Prop 21 on the ballot. It is basically Prop 10 from 2018, but it has some revisions. So this is about rent control. And this is basically another attempt to repeal Costa-Hawkins so that cities are allowed to introduce new rent control laws or expand their existing one. So we know that one of the problems that we have with housing is that there's all these crazy restrictions about like what can be a rent control unit, what can't. I know, I can't remember what city it is. I think it's San Francisco or Oakland, maybe San Francisco. It only applies to units built before like 1973 or something. And then they can't do any major renovations to them, or they're considered like a newly built thing, you know, like when you do an add-on on your house and they make you like reassess your taxes and stuff like that. So you could lose it. So you end up basically creating like, I hate to use the word like slum towns, but you know, you just end up with properties that are rent control because they're older and the landlords become afraid of doing too much to them, or the tenants don't want things done to them because then they're going to lose some of their protections. So this allows, it's not as strong as Prop 10 was, but a lot of general law cities who have to abide by Costa-Hawkins get themselves into this jam, where they're restricted on how they can expand or use their rent control. Go back to phone banking, Vinny. So anyways, this is basically just like Prop 10, not just like, but like I said, a little looser version of Prop 10. It was supported by the AIDS Healthcare Foundation. Does anyone have any questions or comments on this? Okay. I will say on Cal Matters, it does say that what's different from this one is that cities would be allowed to apply new rent control ordinances only to homes that are at least 15 years old, and it exempts single family homes owned by landlords with no more than 2 properties. So it does still want to protect the mom and pop landlord and give cities more autonomy. So if there's no further discussion, we'll move right along.
That's a yes vote?
Is that a yes vote?
Yeah, that one is a yes. That one's a very direct yes vote. Yes. Yes. Now Proposition 22 is the tricky one. Prop 22 is the Lyft Uber prop. So we passed, I believe it was AB5 or SB5. One of those was, it said that Lyft and Uber drivers and DoorDash drivers cannot be independent contractors. They have to be employees. And this is a really big deal. I don't know if anyone's ever known someone who's driven for Lyft or Uber or DoorDash. Like when these companies came up with their business plans, it was because, okay, we're going to help people put a little extra cash in their pocket. But obviously a lot of people have used these as their full-time jobs. And when I say full-time jobs, when Cullen was driving for Uber, he would have to drive for like 12 or 14 hours every single day for like 6 days straight just to get the money that he needed. So they're really not great, you know. I mean, I'm seeing these commercials now for, you know, yes on Prop 22. It is having people be independent contractors does not help them. And there's plenty of competition out there where if Lyft and Uber want to like peace out on California, we're California. We got this, okay? You need us. We don't need. So this is a no vote on 22. A no vote keeps the state legislative law that classes these people as employees. Now, one thing that they did do in 22 that you have to be careful, they're trying to push this, is say that they will now have a floor base income for people, and they will give them a stipend for healthcare. And that's supposed to make it better. They're really just trying to skirt their way around making you an employee and having to give you healthcare and all that stuff. Like, what kind of stipend are you going to get? I mean, they could just give you a $75 stipend for healthcare. Please go find me a healthcare plan that's $75. I'll wait. Like, it's not going to happen. It doesn't exist. Like, that's the problem with job-based medical care in this country. These companies should put all this money they're putting into Yes on 22 into Medicare for All so that they wouldn't have to worry about it.
That's true.
Right.
Does anyone else have comments on this one? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a comment. Is this the one that the newspapers are trying to get their carriers an exemption to, because the newspapers are having a really tough time and the carriers work, you know, very limited hours delivering the papers, and they're trying to get in. Does this include any exemption for them? Do you know?
I haven't read the entire thing to see what is exempted. Let me, if anybody else has read anything, feel free to jump in. I'll peruse quickly. It was Assembly Bill 5.
Because I think that I agree with you that,
Yeah.
you know, Uber and Lyft shouldn't be able to get away with that. But I do kind of feel sorry for the newspapers and their carriers, because it's kind of
Yeah.
a different situation.
And there were a lot of newspapers also who use like independent contractors for their journalism. And these people write articles and submit them and get paid like 30 cents a word, or, you know, whatever their rate is. And I have a lot of my friends were journalism majors and have journalism degrees and work, you know, on the side. So they are also had originally been impacted. I believe the legislature went back in the original AB 5 bill and did make some adjustments for certain industries. But overall, this is targeted at Uber, Lyft, Postmates, DoorDash. And I think if anybody's worked for them or knows people who's worked for them, like,
Vanessa was on a session sometime in the last week where we talked about this, and she did mention that there are some professions, and she didn't mention newspapers, but she mentioned musicians, and it had gone back and fixed it for them. So I think you're right, Kelsey. There were some other areas where they did fix it, and that this one really is focused on the ride share and the delivery apps.
Okay.
Brian, when you ask about opposition, are you asking about no on 22 or yes on, because yes on 22 is technically the opposition. No on 22 is to keep
people opposing it. I mean, there's so much money going into trying to trick people into saying yes. I was just searching the web right now, and I don't see a lot on people working to get a no vote.
I would assume labor would take up the mantle on this.
It is labor.
Yeah. I've seen the yes on 22 mailers already. And the good thing about California is that it does have to say on the mailer now that this is mostly paid for by Uber, Lyft, and whatever other. So you kind of, the disclosure laws have gotten really good in California over the last like 6-ish years. So major contributors to political action committees that send out these mailers have to be listed on it now. So I'm kind of hoping that in and of itself will be kind of the no on 22 campaign. But I also have met Americans and they don't read very well. So we need to make sure to educate everyone on how to read their mailer disclosures. Love America.
It is a big no for the labor people, and the labor organizations have all come out with no against this on all of their literature.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that this is one of those ones where people just see that these guys, I think they're spending $200 million. I mean, I see ads for it everywhere, and people just see that, they see through it. Because
the costliest campaign yet in California for a prop. They've spent $181 million already, which far exceeds anything else.
And I don't, you know, their model, especially Uber, but Lyft too, has been to just skirt laws and just to keep going, because people, and I just hope they get hammered here and really lose it. I'm going to also, this is slightly different, but there's this 5-part podcast on labor history. It was on The Bay, which is this really great local podcast through KQED. And I learned so much from this podcast that I hadn't known, like how labor has been systematically marginalized since the early 1900s. And it applies to this too, you know. So anyway, if people want to look at it, it's there. But yeah.
Before this prop, the other prop that had the highest amount of money spent on it was Prop 10, when California Apartment Association and the Rental Housing Association poured over $100 million into stopping Prop 10. So it's kind of interesting to look at who are the biggest industries pouring hundreds of $1 millions into our direct democracy initiatives. Real estate, Uber, anything else on 22?
Yeah, one quick one is, they just don't want to pay benefits.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why the Uber and Lyft don't want to pay benefits. They don't want to give extra benefits to their employees. They want them to be independent contractors, so there's no benefits. So that gives you the answer there.
I do have one more thing, Kelsey, just a point to think about, I guess, is that One of the other things about Uber and Lyft drivers is there are a lot of those drivers who are employees of other organizations where they already have their health care delivered by that. And maybe they take a leave of absence, or they take whatever you call it, the 6 months off, and then they go drive for Uber and Lyft. And they can do that because they already have health care. But a lot of their contracts with their actual employers say they can't be an employee of another corporation. And so this is going to stop that from occurring, which actually is good for a lot of us. I mean, I could talk about it from my perspective in the bus transportation business. It's going to be good to be able to stop that business so that we're not paying for benefits of somebody who's gone out and driving for Uber instead of, the position and the job that they are employed for. So.
Yeah. And again, I think like we could just have Medicare for all and fucking take care of this problem right quick. But America, what are we gonna do? Just gonna sit in these Zoom meetings and complain about it all day. So Prop 23, I'll push right along. This is the return of Prop fucking something from 2018. This is about dialysis centers. So this is to regulate dialysis centers. SEIU 1021 is, I think, the main push on this, because basically dialysis centers are privately owned, and they make a lot of money, and a lot of their facilities are not upkept, and a lot of their workers, the reason SEIU is very into this is because then also healthcare workers at these dialysis clinics also aren't getting their fair share. And then so like I think in 2018 we remember DaVita themselves put a ton of money into stopping this. So it does create, I believe, they want to be able to unionize the clinic staff. They want to be able to cap reimbursement rates. And so DaVita and the other companies spent over $111 million on this in 2018. And I think obviously we would all support it. I don't know if anyone's ever like known someone who has to get dialysis, but like a lot of these patients, you have to have it for the rest of your life basically. And a lot of these patients have to go, if not every day, every other day, multiple times. So they have a lot of patients. They can make a lot of money. So what this bill does is say, okay, you're allowed to keep this percentage of money as profits, and everything else has to get reinvested back into your patient's care, either through, employees, facility updates, stuff like that. Anything that we can do to rein in the medical industry and to make, dialysis is vital for people to survive. So it's not like, oh, if you can't afford this, or, oh, if, the facility's dirty, or the health, they're understaffed because people don't want to get paid garbage, like just die. That's completely unreasonable. Does anyone else have any comments on this one? I know some of these are repeats, so we talked them to death already in 2018.
Well, the way I read it is that it requires a physician on staff too. So that's expense for the dialysis company, but it seems like that's a positive thing, because I've gone to these places and if a physician isn't there and something negative happens, oh, it takes a while to get some, and people have died because of it. So having a physician there, I think, is a good thing for yes. And requiring them to do a good job rather than just focus on the profit.
Yeah.
So I think so. So I'm a yes.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you. I am too. I'm curious that that these are the things that they pulled out this time. They must think this is what they can win on. But you're right, Fred. Like, they're relying on the fire departments or the paramedics systems to provide the healthcare, and yet you're a healthcare industry. So you're profiting off of the patients and their insurance company. You're profiting by using the taxpayer-funded public health safety net. Knock it off.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
So if there's no further discussion on this one, we'll just move right along to Prop 24. Now this one has gotten me twisted because, here's the background on it from Cal Matters. So what it would do is strengthen California's already strongest in the nation consumer privacy law and establish a California Privacy Protection Agency. So in 2018, lawmakers passed the California Consumer Privacy Act, giving consumers the right to find out what data companies are collecting about them, to opt out of having it collected, and to have the data scrubbed. It was and remains the only law like it in the country. It was also a compromise. San Francisco real estate developer Alistair McTaggart had been pushing for an even stricter ballot measure, but the legislature stepped in and had to broker a deal between him and the tech industry. But now it's back and it's on the ballot. So along with setting up a state agency tasked with enforcing state privacy law, the measure would beef up financial penalties for violators and allow consumers to demand that personal information not be shared at all, rather than simply not sold. The thing that gives me a weird pause on this, maybe I have to double check my mailer. The ACLU is against this. Everybody else seemed for it. I know, I'm pretty sure the Dems were for it, but when I was looking at the mailer I got on it,
It's loopholes.
and I tend to listen to whatever the ACLU says.
They said it's full of loopholes.
Yeah, EFF
And
is
exceptions.
against it
They're not
also.
necessarily.
Did anyone read about this in any more detail before I sit here and do it right now?
I put a link in the chat for the EFF for why they're against it, so you can read that. But yeah, I'm pretty much convinced to be against it at this point.
Yeah, I think this was mostly written by tech companies behind closed doors. So if you look at the Green Party guide, it sort of lists that. And the recommendations I have, Kelsey, are that the California Democratic Party is also against it, and even the Mercury News, the East Bay Times, which are generally fairly moderate, almost moderate conservative, they're against it too. So it was a pretty clear no to me. This is not the bill for privacy.
Yeah, the link Brian posted is really good, so I would read through that.
Yeah,
That's a lot of info. Yeah, so that's good. That's good. This is, yeah. So this is a no vote. This isn't a weird backwards one. And so then last but not least, Prop 25, which would eliminate bail. Now we already had passed this in our legislature. The bail bonds companies came back and got this on the ballot. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure, in our platform, we say that we are against cash bail. This is a direct yes vote, I believe. I believe if you vote yes on this, it will replace cash bail with risk assessment, which is something the legislature already passed. I'm just verifying that it's not one of the backwards ones because I hate those so much. But does anyone else have conversation about this?
I guess I should have read up on all this.
This is the
Where
right.
did the bail bondsmen stand on it?
Oh, well, obviously they're the ones that put it on the ballot, that did all the legwork.
Then I'm suspect.
Yeah, exactly. And so what it's asking us to do is either approve or strike down the state law that banished money bail from the state criminal justice system. We passed this in 2018 and have been trying to replace it more with risk assessment. I I don't see any reason. I mean, I do think that we're going to have issues with getting the risk assessment program to be incredibly fair and equal. I think definitely in our county and at the state level, we have obviously really good judges for the most part, but there are definitely parts of our state still that are very like wild, wild west. And people are, there is going to be an punitive, you know, consequence of risk assessment, like, hey, this white person doesn't seem like they're a risk, so we'll let them go. Oh, but this not white person over here, you're probably going to bail on us, and so we're just going to keep you in jail for your trial. That's the kind of stuff I'm always worried about when we get into this, you know, who's really going to benefit from risk assessment. So I support it, but I want progressives and Democrats to be vigilant about how risk assessment is applied, because that's going to be like the next great frontier, you know, as we keep trying to make these laws to equalize everything and to quit being punitive against the people at the bottom. It almost seems like, you know, there's always that way that they find a way to make it regardless. So let's stay vigilant about risk assessment, friends. Oh, long comment on Prop 25. Do you want to go?
Apparently, I can't cut and paste it in. So,
Oh,
and from the Green Party, it says that, you know, Prop SB 10, it was a good bill, but then it was sort of gutted by legislators in the back room. So this just, the risk assessment that they're going to try to do is not the right way to do it. This is what I understand of it right now. This is not the right bill to stop bail, you know, cash bail.
yeah.
I think.
Go ahead, Jackie.
Yeah, did you say this was being, that the bail bondsmen were actually behind this? Is that?
Yeah, they put it on the ballot.
Okay.
Obviously, they're going to be run out of business by banning cash bail. And again, I don't think cash bail is the correct system. I do believe in risk assessment, but I believe in that being done correctly. And I think a lot of our concerns, you know, have to have faith in the system. And that's all 11 propositions that we'll be voting on.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to take Prop 15 off the ballot because I think we're all going to pretty much unanimously support that. And we can say that's a yes. And I'm going to replace it with Prop 14 and let you guys just vote on stem cell money instead. So the ballot's kind of done. I just have to copy and paste it and send it out to everybody. So you should get it tomorrow morning because I have to finish my homework tonight. And my homework is also mostly done. Like my entire life is just like a series of, well, that's almost done. That's almost done. But yeah, is there any other discussion on the propositions before we endorse? Does anyone have questions or comments on any of them? Anything you really want to go up to bat for or really want to kill yourself over?
We're boring.
Okay, I understand. Yes, thank you, Frank. I think this was helpful too. I had not actually had a chance to sit down and go over the props yet. Understanding, yeah.
So
we're all reading, we're all just gonna read the chat comments real quick.
Oh, chat comments, sorry.
Yeah, it's about Prop 25 and understanding the history of SB 10. A broad coalition fought for years for legislation that would curtail or eliminate the use of cash bail. They championed and supported SB 10, but inexplicably, legislators in our Democratic supermajority worked out a backroom deal with judges and law enforcement unions that completely gutted it. And the vast majority of the organizations that put it together have now reversed their support of the bill. Yeah. This is starting to feel like a no-win proposition.
Yeah.
Right, because if you vote no, does that return us to a cash bail system?
Just
Yeah.
where we are, so we would need to go back to the legislature and get a better bill.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I sort of remember because I was active some in following some of the bills in the legislature. I remember when that was gutted this or last session. It was pretty disheartening. As Kelsey says, they do this so much. I mean, we need to get good people in the legislature, but this doesn't seem the right way to go to me, from what I understand of it.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? That we should vote yes just because we don't want to go to a non-cash? I'm confused too now.
Where the default would be the system now, we'd stay at cash bail until we changed it with another California law, which
Gotcha.
we can get in the next, if we get a better supermajority next year.
I mean,
Well, would this be a stepping stone in the right direction? Or would this be okay, now we don't have to do anything? So
I feel like we're just changing the chains of bondage from, okay, so now, we don't have to worry about people being trapped in jail because they can't make cash bail. We just have to worry about how they're being assessed. And I think that everybody on this call understands that, like, systemic racism, classism, all of that stuff is deeply embedded in our system. So if we eliminate cash and we're leaving this up to the judgment of people, judges, law enforcement, do we trust that system to be impartial and fair? I mean, the data shows it's not. So really what we're voting on is changing the chains of bondage, in my opinion. But I will disagree with Mandeep in the fact that I think it's a stepping stone in some direction, because once we can begin, government works on so many levels. So, like, for example, here in Alameda County, I think that we would do really good. We have pretty diverse judgeship and stuff like that. The problems that, let's say, like Bakersfield, right? San Bernardino County is a hot mess. They'll probably have a lot more issues with, having this applied fairly, but they also have their own options at the county level and city levels and stuff like that. So I think it's a stepping stone, but I think we need to be vigilant about how we fix the problems with restorative justice and a risk assessment. This is what I'm saying. It feels like a no-win. It feels like you're just, like, changing the chains of bondage, but where do we believe we will be able to get more done? Trying to keep working it out against this billion-dollar bail bonds industry that wants, because you also have that, or do we want to get rid of that and then now move our fight over to our actual institutions? And we're already in that fight, so I want to keep fighting our institutions for fair, equitable, impartial risk assessment, and I want bail bondsmen to go fuck themselves. I think I've told probably everyone on this call the story before, but I got arrested for a parking ticket and I had a $20,000 bail, $20,000 warrant. I'm sorry. So my bail was like $2,000 on a parking ticket. And I remember my boss at the time actually fronted the $2,000 because they weren't going to let me out on my own recognizance. I was like 24 years old, like I went and turned myself in and everything. And they were like, no, you're not going to get OR, you're going to have to come up with bail, and it's a Friday night, or we're transferring you to Santa Rita for a parking ticket. I just want to remind everyone. And so I called basically the only person I knew that would have $2,000, and I was like, please get me out of jail. So he did. It was also his idea for me to turn myself in. So he was like, if they don't can let you out, I'll bail you out. And that he regrets that. So anyways, I went to court, and I remember when I was standing before the judge and we were trying to figure out, how did I get in this situation? The public defender kept telling the judge, she posted bail, Your Honor. She posted bail. She's never done anything wrong, and she was able to post bail. And he just kept ending every sentence with the judge with the fact that I had posted bail. Like, so that should give me some type of special privilege because somebody in my life had $2,000 lying around. So that haunts me so fucking much when I think about this particular issue, because that is real. That is, I would hate to think a judge is sitting up there judging me differently because I posted bail, and the guy that comes in after me who, might be a black dude or something, same parking ticket, and it's, he couldn't pay bail, so let's judge him completely differently because he's obviously a terrible person. And that's just not something I want to keep supporting in this state.
Well, same story. I don't have really strong feelings or know enough to say anything more.
So I like to tell big industries to go get. So let's do it to bail bondsmen next. But with that being said, we're about 10 minutes early. I'm going to go finish my homework. But it was wonderful to see you all.
It was very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Great, Kelsey.
Yep.
And
Thank you, Kelsey.
absolutely happy to lead the discussion, and everyone look for your ballots in your email tomorrow. They're going to come directly from SurveyMonkey. So keep your eye out. All right, everyone?
Okay.
And what is the restrictions? You have to have attended 3 meetings or something?
3 meetings, paid your $5 dues, which I'm looking at everyone on this call and they're all good. And then
Standing.
you have to have at least,
I'm the secretary of this club.
yeah, you are, and you've also paid and attended 3 meetings in the last year. But also, so we have 30 voting members right now. And so for a quorum to exist, we have to receive at least 15 votes and abstentions. So if there's if let's say, Prop 14, 18 of the voting members abstain, then we don't have, okay. Let's say 15 people do not vote, then we can't, or 16 people technically do not vote, then we can't endorse, there's not a quorum. So at least half the voting members' body has to submit a ballot. Abstentions count towards the quorum, but not the vote. So that's what's going down. And if you've not paid your dues yet, reach out to me and we can work it out. I have a couple people who are just on the IOU system. They're like, Kelsey, I can't figure out PayPal. I normally just give Rennie $5. What do I do? And I was like, I gotcha. So I tag them in MailChimp with an IOU. And next year when we're back in person, I'm coming for all your $5.
Make it 10.
Yeah.
They can always email me. I mean, they can always mail me money if they want. That works too. A check.
Cash and
Okay.
envelope. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyways, it was wonderful to see everybody, and we are gonna go ahead and end this call now. It is recorded, so I'm gonna put it up on YouTube, and if anybody needs to review it, that's where it'll be.
Okay.
Thanks, Kelsey.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Night.
Thanks all.
Good night, everybody.